Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning into another episode of the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today, we're talking to a competitor who started competing in 2015, got her pro card in 2016 with a background in nutrition, psychology, and personal training. She helps competitors and non-competitors achieve a heightened level of health and fitness. Welcome to the show, Stephanie Sequiera. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing just swell. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thank you so much for being on and making the time today. I just want to start the episode how I start every episode and ask you, of course, right before you step on stage, do you have a ritual or something you like to think about or do literally right before you step on?
Yes. Especially when I'm like standing in line waiting. So what I usually imagine is myself walking on that stage and just pretty much picturing exactly what I'm going to do, how the lights are going to feel, how the floor is going to feel. So I just kind of put myself in the situation before I get on stage. And I do that maybe like a good 10 times before I even get on stage. And it usually helps me not to mess up on anything. It's like I've already practiced it so many times that there's no way for me to mess up. So I've been doing that quite a lot. I think I started that whenever I started my second year as a pro. And I feel like my posing has improved tremendously. It allows you to slow down so much. Once you're on stage, it just goes so fast. And then you look at the video and you're like, oh my God, why was I going so fast?
Why did I run?
Exactly. So it helps you out a ton. And I do that pretty much. That's my ritual every time.
That's really, really cool. I actually had the opposite thing happen where I always do the visualizing when I'm practicing posing, and before I go on stage, I try to really just let things go. But I went so slow because I was trying to not go too fast that then I feel like I hurt myself by going too slow. But it's part of the process. You live and learn. So
exactly.
I was testing something new, okay, well, how does it look to go slower? But that's how it is. So thanks for sharing what you do. I really just want to dive into this with you because something that I saw on your page and we talked about prior to doing this episode, and to everybody listening, nobody on here knows the exact questions I'm going to ask. Most of the times, we don't even know exactly what we're going to cover. I just ask them for some of their ideas of things that they want to talk about. And then of course the things that I learned from them and their page and anything that they put out there. So something I want to talk to Steph about is your idea of weight acceptance, because in this industry, a lot of girls stress over, focus on, or get caught up in their weight on the scale. So what's your experience with this?
So here's my deal with this. I've always been one that so I gained a good amount. I got my pro card right before my pro debut, and I thought it was all gains. I was so I was sitting around maybe 117 stage, and then I got up to 140 that off season. And I was like, oh, good, all these gains, and everyone was commenting, and I was like, oh wow, you got swole stuff, and I was like, oh yeah. And I didn't actually put on that much muscle in that little time period that I had, and I just put on a good amount of fat that time. And just coming down, I had a 12-week prep, and it literally killed me because I literally killed it to try to get down to, I think we got down to that year we got down to 112, and I was just skin and bones just because if you try to rush things so fast, especially if you do it naturally, you're going to take away so much muscle with that journey. So after that, and that whole prep was just awful. And my preps are usually pretty easy. I can get away with things and I can, still go heavy, but that prep was just awful. So I kind of pretty much told myself after that prep, I was like, I'm never going to gain this much weight again. I'm going to be at 128 max nothing else, nothing more, and that is it.
Mm.
So I think I did like 3 off seasons, and I pretty much stayed around there. Like the most I would get was like 130, and I was like, okay, this is fine. And then I would start prep again. And then when was it? This last show season, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to stick around 125 pounds because that's what I want to do. And one of the things that I struggle with is losing my period during my time during my prep seasons, and I hadn't had my period in 2 years until the last 2 months from now. So I finished this last shows in June, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna stay at 125, and that is it. That is all. I'm gonna get my period. Somehow it's gonna happen. It's gonna come back, whether I gain a lot of weight or don't, but it's gonna happen because I just need time. And I didn't get my period back. I stayed pretty lean for a good amount of time, all the way until I think it was like 3 months after I moved to California. And during the time I was here, I got into a car accident, which I got, it wasn't like my car got totaled, but I was fine. But I still like did something with my neck where it was just stiff and it hurt, and I couldn't do any kind of upper body. And that just kind of put me in like a little bit of a depression because I wasn't able to work out as hard as I was used to. And with the stress, and I wasn't even overeating or anything, but just with the stress and like not being able to work out or do things that I wanted to do, I gained a good amount of weight. And I just like, I was just going crazy because I went from like 124, 25 that I was pretty much like content with, and I skyrocketed to like 130. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do at 130? My goal was 125. It was 125. And I pretty much like beat myself up that whole entire time that I was, that I had that accident. So it was a good like 4 weeks where I was just like, I was just down. Like there was no way, like I was just like, I don't understand. Like I'm not the ab chick, and my abs are fading. Like everything's awful. And it wasn't until one day, I think it was like right after my neck got better. Like I think it was like a good 6 weeks after my neck got better. And I was like, okay, Steph, you can't keep, having this mentality. Like you're just going to keep gaining weight. And if it is what it is, that is what it is. So I pretty much put the scale, I was weighing myself every single day too.
Wow.
I put the scale in the closet, and I'm like, I am not weighing myself for a whole entire week. That was the hardest week of my life. I literally would go in the closet and just stare at it. I'm like, I'm going to step on you. And then I didn't. But, and I think that week just kind of, and then I also did like a whole intuitively eating week also. And I was like, okay, I just need to take a break from everything. I will go lift. I'll go do my cardio. I'll do whatever I want to do, but I'm not going to step on the scale, and I'm going to eat more of what I feel like I need to be eating. And then after that, I don't know, something just clicked in me, and I'm like, okay, why does the weight matter? I feel good. I feel like I'm getting my strength back on, and something just clicked on that. And I was just like, okay, you know what, Steph, like, let's just go hard at the gym and let's see how your weight does. If it, if the weight goes up, if it goes down, it's okay. We'll figure it out. So what I started noticing is like the scale kept going, like I started like weighing myself after that week. And I started tracking macros like better. And well, like 100% pretty much. And just like I was pretty consistent with it. And I started noticing that the scale was kind of staying the same. Actually, it was kind of going up a little bit, but I was getting more lines and more definition everywhere. And I was like, hold on. If I can look good and have lines but still be heavy, like that would be pretty awesome. So I kind of like just switched my mentality about being 124 and being like, it's okay if I gain weight. And that has allowed me to pretty much experience more like, okay. So right now I am sitting around like 136 pounds. So I've gained like 10 pounds since it's been like 16 pounds from stage weight. And I feel like I look great. I feel like I can do everything that I want. I still have my abs. I still have my body, and I can still perform what I want. So I think I figured a formula that worked for me that allowed me to get what I want without really focusing on that skill that was making me not look as great. I feel like a lot of it has to do with your mind. So if you tell yourself, I look awful, I look awful, I look bloated, I look soft, then your body's going to want to go in that direction. Like your mind has so much to do with it. And I feel like once I started like swifting it around, be like, oh wow, look, I have these abs at this weight. That's crazy. And everything just started coming together. And that's where I am today.
Yes. What a great share. I love that you took us through that. Like,
I was like, it's a long story.
no, that was amazing. That's like, I would have asked you stuff about that to get that. So that was awesome of you to share that. And I think that that's super helpful for competitors, especially because they're so, and honestly, any woman really, because we think, especially as competitors, we have to be a certain weight in the off season. Like, I've mentioned it, like, I think in one episode in the past, like this, like all like encompassing like 10 pounds, like you have to only go 10 pounds of stage. It's like, where did that even come from, right? Like, what if you feel better? What if you're someone who gains weight faster or slower, or you put on muscle like when you have a little extra body fat because you have more energy? You know, there's so many factors that go into it that I think we neglect to consider because we're constantly just listening to the conditioning that we've had. So
And it's so true. And that was one of the things, like my goal for this off season was to get my health back. Like I hadn't had my period for like 2 years. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get my period this year. And I wasn't going to be able to do that if I didn't eat out, or if I didn't eat more food, or have a higher quantity of calories, or have mostly it has been because of the amount of body fat that I have. And that has helped me to get to the healthier body that I need, that my body requires.
Yeah, I'm going through that right now, actually. Like, I lost my period for 2 years. I haven't had it at all. I had it from like a medication I was given a year ago, and then it disappeared when I started another prep. And what we determined was maybe mine wasn't so much about body fat, because it didn't seem to matter if I was at a higher, like right now I'm at a way higher body fat percentage than I've been in a long time. I still don't have my period. And then there was like, way back when, like during prep, obviously I was at the lowest body fat I've ever been in my life probably, and I didn't have my period. So what we determined was mine was likely stress related. And you brought up stress and how powerful this is, especially when we create our minds. And you said something that I think we can really expand on here, which was when you look at your body and you're like tearing it apart, right? Like, oh my gosh, I look horrible, I look bloated, I look soft. Your body wants to go there. Or what I've noticed as well is you think those thoughts, and then you don't feel as inspired to make the decisions that are going to shift you into the identity of someone who's not those things. So when you were going through that, did you notice a significant difference when you finally decided, I'm not going to say these things to myself anymore, I'm going to just commit to what I need and want? What did you notice both mentally and physically from that?
I just felt free. I think that's the word. I felt freedom. I just felt so stuck. And so like, I felt like a failure because I was like, okay, I'm eating less food. I'm just sitting here. I mean, I can't do anything, but I'm doing what I can, but I'm eating less food and I'm gaining weight. And I think that was just what was killing me, because I couldn't control that. I didn't have control. And it's, with competing, there's a lot of control that goes with it. Like you kind of know, it's like, oh, I'm losing weight. I know I'm going to lose around like 0.2 pounds per day. If I'm doing this or I'm doing that, like you can kind of like tell how your body's going to respond, especially if you've done several shows. I mean, I've been competing since a while. So you kind of understand that. But once you get on the off season and especially even, I don't know, I've just been competing for so long. I've always had so much control, and just not having that control has like, it shifted me. And it wasn't until like I decided, okay, I need to let go, no more of that. And it's just like a door opened. Like it's kind of crazy. It's hard to explain.
No, I totally understand it. And even from like a psychological perspective, it's actually like most of the times people crave and seek that control in their life, and then they discover it or find it through things like fitness and food and what we eat. Like same thing goes for children. Like when they learn how to talk, and then all of a sudden they stop talking, or when they learn how to go to the bathroom and then they just start peeing their pants or whatever, it's because that is the one thing they have control over. So they're going to take that control and they're going to manipulate it and use it to the best of their ability so that they feel more independent, they feel stronger, they feel better about themselves. Same thing goes for adults. The more we control, obviously, the more we think we're in control, when in reality, it almost takes away a lot of our natural control panel or on our natural system. And by the way, congrats on getting your period back. I should have said that. I think it's really
Thank
great.
you.
Should
Thank
be
you.
celebrated like with a huge ass party if you haven't had one. You know, tampons hanging from the ceiling. Have some fun.
Oh, I celebrate each time. I do like a dance, and I'm like, I swear, I feel like no female out there celebrates every time they get their period. Like,
Oh yeah, no, exactly. I regret the days where I'm like, oh, I can't believe my period's back. Like I regret ever feeling that way. I'm like, come back to me.
I know. And then you have it, and you're like, okay, it's good enough. You can leave now.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. You see it and you're like, yo, no, this actually sucks. But it is a sign of health, right? So that's a really good thing that you were able to get that back. And I love that you said that you could not get that back by just continuously eating less or remaining in deficit, keeping your body fat percentage low. You had to go out to eat, you had to eat more, increase your calories, etc. I think a lot of women are afraid to do this because there are other side effects that come with that. And like I know personally what's helped me is to go, okay, well, we're all on a different path, a different journey. Like this is a struggle I'm going through, but it's not the end, right? Like I'm still going to have opportunities moving forward. So what did you do to, aside from letting go of control, I know that really helped you. And if that's the only thing that you did, that's cool too. But like what helped you to really almost shift the identity from being someone who has low body fat like all the time, so much so that they don't have their period, to someone who has more freedom, has less control, but is able to get more of their health functioning? Like what made you feel better about transforming into that? Like how did you
I had no choice. So it was like since I had the accident, I couldn't do anything. So if it wasn't for the accident, I think I'd still be 124 pounds at this point. So I think, things happen for a reason in life sometimes where, and I think that's what, made me get that. Because if it wasn't for that, I'd still be like doing not hours of cardio, because I wasn't doing that much cardio or anything else, but I was really good at maintaining. I've always been really good at reverse dieting. And the fact that I couldn't do anything about it was what allowed me to get there.
That's so crazy, huh? Like a blessing in disguise. Like
there's always a silver lining.
yeah, yes, absolutely there is. And you also said something that I had written down. I was like, I gotta talk to her about this. You said like you had a moment where you're like, I'm no longer the ab chick. And I wanted to know, like, has coining yourself, preface this for the audience, your Instagram handle is the ab chick, right? So obviously this is why we're talking about this. Everybody listening, if you don't follow her yet, now you know. So has coining yourself this way made you like ever feel pressure to stay super lean all the time?
Yeah. So I think I've always had abs. I've had abs since I was 16. And it was just something that I was like, oh, cool. And even in my off seasons, even at my heaviest, I like as the heaviest with like the heaviest amount of fat, I still had some abs in me. And I think this year I changed my name to the ab chick. And I was like, okay, cool. And yeah, so when that transition happened where I had the accident and I was getting softer because I wasn't working out as much, I was like, oh my God, people are going to think I'm a fluke. Who's going to follow me? Who's going to follow this ab chick that doesn't have any abs? Like, so I was very frustrated, and luckily for me, I was able to get them back even at the weight that I am now. So it's been a happy, moment, but we're humans, and there are times that we're not going to have what we want at times in our body. So right now, for example, right today, I'm on my time of the month, and my abs are not defined enough. Haven't been super defined for the last week or so because of PMS or whatever. I usually start getting softer, and then today and yesterday I've been the softest I've been. And I just kind of, it is what it is. I know that next week I'm going to have abs again and I'll be okay. So yeah, it gets tough, but you kind of just get over it, and you're like, okay, they're still there. It's just a little bit of water that's covering them. I kind of got over that, but it was very hard whenever I had that accident and I couldn't do anything, and I thought that was the end of my abs.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really like important thing that to hear you say and also to share with the people who like are listening and following you as well. Because people put so much pressure on themselves and they want to like fit this very specific bill, but sometimes we don't have control, like you said, like we don't always have control over those things that happen. Like you don't know that every single month you get your period you're going to feel a certain way, right? Like a lot of times like those things could change. Or maybe you don't know, like after a workout you might be like cramping so much, like you didn't plan to cramp, but you got cramps, and now you have
Right.
to address them, and then that can change other things that are happening in your body. So I think like it's really about accepting that change and flow, as you said, was like next week you'll be okay. So um kind of going back towards like the weight situation, where do you think it comes from for like a lot of women to let's talk specifically about competitors. Where do you think it comes from for competitors to focus so much on the number on the scale, and how do you recommend that we actually start shifting that culture around it?
So it gets difficult, I feel like on your off season, depending on how your body responds and where your body is comfortable at, that's where it needs to be. However, like for that number on that scale, once you get lean enough, I mean, everyone's going to have it a little bit different, but you're always going to have that little bit magic number for you. So for me, it's around like 117 to 120. And that's where I know I've kind of hit that sweet spot that I'm like, okay, I'm good to go on stage, or, oh, I need to like kind of like bring it down a little bit more. So it should be used more as a reference than anything else. Because I mean, as the years go by, you're going to put on more muscle, or if you do it wrong, you're going to lose some muscle. So you're going to have to like end up putting more, bringing down your body, like your whole weight completely coming down a little bit more. So you kind of have to just take it as a reference. And that's just with everything, even like just growing on your off season, it's just a reference. And if you're okay, so as long as you look good and you're happy with what you look, the scale should not matter.
Yes,
And
100%.
and that's what I've, it's taken me a long time this past couple months to really realize that, but I'm like, man, I look really good. And I'm happy with how I look. And, sometimes I'll be talking to someone, they'll be like, oh yeah, but you're going to have to lose a lot of weight. I'm like, well, I mean, if this is where my body wants to be at this point, then I'll just, once I get on stage, I'll just take a little bit longer time. I won't do those 12 crazy weeks. I'll just take some time to lean out, and that's fine. But my body needs to be here at this point right now so I can get its period back. Because I know if I start cutting again, like I'm going to lose it right away.
Mm-hmm. Seriously, you're like literally like I feel like you're in my brain, like
It
you're
is tough.
my language.
It is tough because I mean, and I haven't always like had this mentality. Like I've always been, well, it's hard to say. Like I've always like preached like health, and I've always preached, like whatever works best for your body and all those things. But sometimes like not everyone, and just through coaching has helped me out a lot too. Because I would be like, oh yeah, I'll tell people, maybe you should like stay around this weight, but then like they'll gain a little bit more weight, or they'll stay under that. And I'm like, okay, well, where's your body comfortable at? That's where it's important. And, we'll just kind of like figure it out from there. But then there's also people that take the comfort a little bit too far, and that's not where their body should be at all. Just
Exactly.
because, they'll start eating and they start saying, oh, the balance, this and that. And then they don't work out. They don't do cardio. They don't want to eat right. And like, they gain a bunch of weight, and then they blame competitions for all their masses. And unfortunately, that's not how it works. Like, you weren't like that before you start competing. Why are you blaming competing? All you're doing is just eating. I bet you didn't eat that much before you started competing. Like,
No, exactly. Yeah.
so, because sometimes I'll even think that way. I'm like, man, like, and it's funny because I even have those thoughts too sometimes. Like, man, like before I started competing, I could do all these things. And I really started thinking about like, no, Steph, you were doing cross country, you're doing track, you're running an hour a day, and you were going to the gym and you're eating like probably like 1,300 calories. And then a cheat meal like every other day. But like, it was like, I wasn't eating enough. Because I remember like whenever I did start eating, I think like competing, I think I started off like a good like 2,000 calories, maybe even like 1,800, like something like around that ballpark. And like, I was like, oh my God, this is so much food. And,
Yeah.
but I think it's just, you just get used to the amount of food.
Yeah.
And
You
And I
do.
think that's where people start falling off from there. And then they start like just blaming other things. And especially after competitions, I feel like that's like the worst for most people. They don't have that goal set up, and then they literally just go and eat everything in their way. And then they make every excuse under the book, and then they're upset and they're mad about their weight. So I think it's important still, not to go overboard, have weight acceptance, have everything, but still be cautious as well, and not think that a certain weight is where you need, being heavy is like, oh, I'm healthy because I'm heavy. No, you might be just too heavy, you might be overweight. You need to like find that sweet
Mhm.
spot for you, and everyone's is a little different.
Absolutely. I always tell people it's like there's a huge, huge difference between self-acceptance and self-love and then self-sabotage and self-destruction. Um, we can literally like self-destruct and say that it's like, okay, I'm gonna say it, like the body positive movement is awesome to an extent. Then
Yes.
you have the people in the body positive movement who really take it too far, where this is a person who clearly, if they don't already have health issues, they are at a much higher risk for health problems. So
Right.
we can't forget that health still matters. And you said like if you look good, you feel good, that's all that matters. The weight doesn't. And that's true. And I think like if you feel good, let's say you also know like your blood's in a good spot, like
And
you're
that's what I meant by it. That's what I
yeah.
meant by it. Like I feel like I still look fit, and I still, I look like someone that someone aspires to, or whatever. And even if you don't look like that, but you can still do everything, and you're still healthy, and like that blood panel comes out good. That's what it should be. But yeah, no, I totally agree with the whole. There's a line that you can't. A lot of people confuse that, and I've been seeing it a lot on social media, where people will just be like, "Oh, I'm just." I'm living life, and I'm not doing anything because I'm not forced by competitions or this fitness industry. And then they gain all this weight, and they're like, and they put pictures side by side of what they look now and what they look then. And they're like, back then I looked depressed. I was so depressed. I was so worried. And right now I'm the best. I love myself. And I swear if they go back and lean out, they'll literally flip the pictures around and they'll be like, oh, back then I was so thick. I was so
Yep.
unhealthy. I couldn't breathe, blah, blah, blah. And like, all
And
these.
then they'll be like, I was making excuses. I was just stuck for so long.
Yes. So
Yep.
it's like you're always gonna like I feel like people are always gonna like gravitate to where they're at right now to just make themselves feel happy. And I think it's a great coping mechanism to an extent, because like that you don't go insane. But I've met a lot of people that do those kind of posts, and they are the most self-sabotaging people I know. Like you see them online and they're like the happiest people, like, oh my God, yes, I love my body. You should love it too. I love you. You love me. Everything's great. Everything's positive. Everything's rainbow. You meet them in person, is like hell just dropped. Like it's like
Mhm.
gloomy everywhere. And they're like, they hate their bodies. They hate their lives. They like, it's the worst thing ever. So, sometimes it's important to understand that even people that are on social media and that are showing something, that's not sometimes exactly how they are. So,
Yes, very, very true. And always like keep that like perspective in the back of your mind, like rather than thinking like, oh, I got to do this because they're doing that. Like really consider if what they're going through is something that they truly feel genuinely or something that they are just like feeling for a moment.
mhm.
And then if you like scroll back on a lot of those women who are doing that, who are competitors, and you were to go back, I'm sure, to when they took that picture in the first place, they're probably very happy,
Right.
very proud. They were probably very excited about how they looked. And I think it's really good. Like, we should definitely, definitely share that message of self love and acceptance. But, like you said, there is a line, and we have to be aware of that as we scroll as well. Like, maybe this person doesn't feel how they feel. Maybe there's questions we can ask them to see what their perspective is. So, like, what do you do, or what do you like to tell your clients or your athletes who like get caught up in the number or get caught up in maybe that self-sabotage game? Like, especially if they feel like they should be somewhere else, or maybe you feel like they should be, like, walk us through something that you normally take your clients through.
So it gets tough, and it honestly depends on the individual. Like some individuals are very self-sabotaging and they want that control all the time, and it does get hard to make them understand that, like, yeah, your weight might fluctuate 0.5 pounds every day, like, or 1 pound, like, out of nowhere, you might wake up 2 pounds heavier, but it's nothing. It's just water. And some people do get really, really, really caught up in that daily scale weight. So my suggestion to people like that is either weigh yourself once a day. I mean, not once a day, I'm sorry. Once a week. Definitely do not weigh yourself 3 times in one day. You should only be weighing yourself in the morning, first thing before you eat, and keep it consistent, because obviously your weight's going to go up as the day goes by and you're eating.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a reference. It doesn't define you. It's just a number that is, obviously, if you're trying to put on muscle, it's going to go up. If you're trying to put on muscle and lose weight at the same time, you might not lose as much weight. So my goal with all my clients is to always add on muscle and do it in the healthiest manner, where they're putting on muscle and they're losing fat. And a lot of people, it's funny because, like, they'll see I have one picture of one client who's like, it shocks me every time, where she was with me for 12 weeks. And she was trying to lose weight. And I think in the whole 12 or 16 weeks, she only lost like 6 pounds. And I was like, oh my God, what am I doing wrong? Like, I've done everything. We've changed everything. She said she's doing everything. Like, I believe her. Like, I literally went through every single little detail that I could have done for her, what I could have done wrong. Like, we changed things so often. And, I kind of, and then I went back and put the 2 pictures together, and I swear they look like completely different people. Like, it looked like she lost 20 pounds. And I was like, oh my God.
Yes. That's the best.
Oh my goodness, it is. And I've even done that with myself. I posted a picture not too long ago of me, like, before and after, like before, like as in, like, right after my my accident, when I got better, and then until now. And like the pictures, you can tell like there's like a 7-pound difference, and I look so much better now than I looked then. So
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where, like, you just kind of have to say, okay, does it really matter? You need to focus on what you look. And yeah, obviously, like, the weight we still need to be concerned with it. Let's say your goal is to lose weight. And, but you just have to take it day by day, week by week. If by the end of the week, we're doing good, we're hitting that benchmark of 1 to 2 pounds per week, great. We just move on. If not, like, you're losing too much or you're not losing anything at all, then that's when the changes come in. And you have to understand that everybody is different. So one program that Sally is doing is not going to work for Julia.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. And I think it's really necessary for coaches in the industry to take responsibility for that as well, and to recognize that, and to provide like the utmost care for each person. I've never been a believer in cookie cutter plans, and I can tell you obviously don't either. When you train, you are a huge believer, actually, in anything. It seems like you're a huge believer in giving no less than 100%, like, always. So a lot of competitors train with this mindset, right? But how do you apply this to other areas of your life?
I kind of use it for everything. I think I do the best with it when it comes to my training and my nutrition, especially on prep. Because I'm like, okay, yeah, if I don't do it, then I don't know, that person might beat me because they're doing it 100%. So I need to give it 110%.
Mm-hmm.
That's what drives me every single day that I'm doing everything that I'm doing. If I'm tired, I'm killing it. Even I'm going to do an extra 5 minutes if I can complain. Like, I just kind of have that mentality. With coaching, it allows me to do that as well too. Because I'm like, okay, if I want my girls to do well, I need to give them that 100%. I need to make sure I'm on top of them, and I need to make sure that they're doing everything they need to do. I need to make sure that their diet is on point, and it kind of like gives me that motivation to keep doing that as well. And same, yeah. So with that, with family, with everything, like, it's just, I think the extremist really comes in whenever I'm on my personal prep mode, because I can control myself, and I can, whenever you're coaching other people, you can only go to one extent. You can't really, you can only give so much. Like, you can only give, you give the plans. They pretty much do the rest.
Yeah.
So I do my best to try to stay up on top of them. And if they have any doubts, I call them. I, give them that pep talk. And I mean, it's worked out really well that I have a background in psychology, because I feel like most of the stuff that I do is therapeutical than actual like
Yeah.
programs. But yeah, I mean, fitness industry is it's a mind fuck. But you know, like we
Yeah, that's
move
true.
on from there, and you just kind of keep it going.
Yeah, exactly. It really is. Like my whole like I don't know if you know much about me, but like basically like my whole mission is to help people build more than just a body. And
Mm-hmm.
essentially that means that we are using like inner work and aligning it to the physical result, because the physical results aren't going to do anything for the inside, right? Like the mindset is going to make a huge difference in the long haul. And that's what I've always done for people. And now I'm seeing it so necessary in the competition space. And that's why I launched like that 8-week personal development program for post-show blues,
Mm-hmm.
because the problem rarely ever lies in the diet and exercise. Like even if you look at the statistics for things like obesity, mental illness, you look at things like eating disorders, right? All these things that people try to treat with nutrition and exercise, they rely on the fitness industry to help them, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then what happens is the fitness industry gets like billions of dollars, right? They grow billions and billions of dollars. But unfortunately, at the same time, those other numbers are on the rise too. How does that make sense? How does it
Yeah.
make sense that if the fitness industry that's supposed to benefit in helping them is not helping them at all? And it's like, obviously the disconnect, the missing piece is the psychology, is the mindset. So I think it's great that you studied that. I personally am enjoying studying that right now. And it, it is so key. I think it's like the missing piece. I think a lot of people think, oh, it's just motivation. Oh, it's just stick to it, believe in yourself. But
But
it's
that has to
so
do a
much
lot with
deeper.
your own head telling you to do it.
Yep,
So yeah, you can have all the
exactly.
programs, you can invest all the money, but if your head's not in it, then you're not gonna, a
Yeah.
lot of people just come in with different excuses and different things, and they just expect things to happen. I think a good thing about having a coach is that accountability, and I feel like that has, at least with all of my clients, like I don't ever, like I haven't had that huge of a dropout rate. Most people, stick around with it, keep going, keep killing it. And it's just because they have that one weekly phone call that they have with me, and they have to be
Mhm.
like, they don't want to look bad in
Yeah.
front of me. So they're like, oh, I've done everything. So
Yes. As you
although
know, we do better when we're being observed.
right. So and it's just one of those things, and like, and what I appreciate from people is, their honesty as well. So like I'll have clients that'll be like, hey Steph, like I couldn't do it. I had my kids today, and like I just had to do this or that. And like this last week it was hard. And I'm like, it's life. It happens. What do we do now? Like,
Hmm.
let's plan to how do we make it better next week? And they're all I think the biggest thing with everything is just making that goal. Because I know a lot. I've had, like, for example, I had a conversation with a young lady today, and she was like, oh, like, I wish I wouldn't have started my program yet. Like, it was her first week. She's like, I've been, at my grandma's house, and she's just feeding me everything. And I don't know, I couldn't follow the constructed meal plan, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. And the thing is, like, for everyone that I give the plans to, I give them like a constructed meal plan and a flexible dieting option. So they can
Hmm.
do either one. And I was like, okay, you know what? This week, let's do more flexible dieting. So you can eat at your grandma's, she can feed you everything she wants, and you can just log it in. And then like that, you can pretty much figure out what you need to eat and still stay on track. She's like, oh, I guess I could do that. Yeah. And I'm like, it's like simple little things and you don't even think about. You just kind of like, you're like, oh, I'm in this place. I'm eating shit. That is it. Everything's off the walls. It's funny because most people still do their training and their cardio, but it's just once that diet is off just by a little bit, they just kind of be like, "Whoop, done. I don't care." And
Yeah, victim of circumstance.
exactly, and it's very, very important to just kind of like work around, and especially for coaches out there that are listening to this, it's just help your client through it. Don't it's instead of just being, oh, it's okay, just try better next week. No, figure out a way to help them reach those goals.
Yeah.
And it's funny because a lot of people don't ever like address other coaches, and I pretty much always do because I feel like there's so many coaches out there, and there are really, really good ones, but there are also really, really bad ones. But those bad ones are only going to get better if they know how to do things. And I don't like it when coaches are like, oh, like I don't want to help other coaches out because, that's my business. You know how many freaking people are in this world? There's how many people in this US, just in the US, who need help with their fitness? A lot. You can't take on all those people. Like
Exactly. And no coach is going to do it like you. So you should share as much knowledge, like help people, because someone who vibes with you may not vibe with someone else. And the opposite is true. So it's better to develop connections and help people. I mean, even on Instagram, you see like the bashing a lot, like, oh, bashing this coach, bashing that. And then it's so funny. They never provide any constructive feedback or like, oh, we should really be doing this instead or focusing on that. So I think it's good that you're addressing it beyond they all suck, everybody stinks, hire me instead. It's like, yo, you didn't even.
Oh, yeah, that person doesn't give enough calories. He's they're doing this. It's like, okay, first of all, it's an extreme sport. You don't know what, 1,200 calories might be pretty bad for someone that's like 5'8", but it might be okay for someone that's like 4'9".
Yeah.
Like, you don't know the individual. You can't just be like, oh, that's pretty low. Oh, you're doing an hour cardio. Oh, that's terrible. Like, you don't know the individual. Some people do really well at cardio. Some people don't. So it just comes down to what works for that individual. Like, I'm a person that I can eat as low as like 1,200 calories. And if you don't put cardio on me, I won't lose any weight. So
yeah, I'm the same.
And I've tried every way. And the thing is, like, and it's funny because you'll see a lot of, like, I've had people ask me all the time, it's like, oh, Steph, why do you always have a coach for your preps? Can't you do it yourself? Yeah, I can do it myself. But there's so many more people out there that have so much more knowledge than I have, or have the same amount of knowledge, but have like a different type of knowledge. And it's important to educate yourself and keep expanding yourself to understand different ways of doing things. Because there's not one way of doing things. There's so many different ways. So it's important and then maybe some people are like used to dealing with a certain demographic where other people are dealing with other demographics. So it's good to understand the whole foundation of it. And, so you're not applying something that might work for an African-American female to, I don't know, a tiny little Polish girl. Like everyone's going to be a little bit different.
Yes, of course. It's like, also it's like, what do they do on a day-to-day basis? Maybe this person sits behind a desk all day, and maybe this person is out dancing and leading dance classes. Like you just don't know. So in regard to, and you brought up like you've had coaches and you can always learn and expand from them. So I want to talk to you about like your journey so far. Like you became a pro and obviously you've competed on the pro stage. Now, what do you think, like when it comes to placings at shows, right? Like, have you found your pro journey to be like starting all over again in the amateurs? Or what has that been like, that transition?
So here's the deal with when it comes to competing. So you have to pay your dues at the, what is it called? In the competing world. So in the NPC, IFBB. You either pay in the NPC or you pay it on the IFBB. So I didn't pay it. I literally went through the NPC and got my pro card on my second national show. I did like 5 shows total. Like I did like 4 local shows and then 2 nationals. Actually 3 local shows and 2 nationals. So 5 shows before I turned pro. Judges didn't know me. I feel like so once I got to the pro level, there has already been individuals who had been competing for a long time, even in the NPC where, they were getting a little bit more recognized than I was. And I think that's what pretty much started it off. And I hadn't, that's one of the reasons why for me, I haven't done as well. I also haven't done as well as I've wanted to because I haven't gotten the physique that I need to have. So if you have ever a chance to look at my physique, I have, my upper body is pretty like conditioned. I have like my abs, I have my shoulders, like everything in the upper body, even in my quads, they look pretty good. You turn me around, my back is good, but that doesn't matter because you're covered by their hair. Like you still, you see my my rear delts, and then you get down to my butt and my hamstrings, and that's like nowhere where it needs to be. So it needs to be more conditioned as it is with my upper body. So that's where it kind of like, it hurts me. I am not a balanced athlete. I don't have that balance between my legs and my upper body. If I had that balance where my legs could match my upper body, then I'd probably placing in the top 5 at every single show that I'm at.
Mm. Yeah,
So
I'm sure. Is that something you've heard from the judges as well?
yeah, and that's something that you just learn just through looking at
Yeah.
other people. Like you go look at the top 5 and look at their conditioning. Is it proportion? Like, because you'll notice, because a lot of people's like, oh, I don't understand how this girl placed. She, she didn't have a gluteus. I'm like, well, how did the rest of her physique look? Does she have like super striated shoulders? And I'm like, oh, I guess not. Like, so you just kind of have to
Right.
like look at everything. Because I've seen a lot of girls that don't have that like super defined tie-in, but they still do really well. And, that was something that always bothered me. I'm like, man, I look great. Like, I don't have that super defined, but neither does this chick. And I don't understand why I'm not getting placed. I mean, it could have been just more of like, she had been noticed more or whatever else, or posting might have been a little better. But I think, it all usually always came down to she was that girl that had the same glutes that I had was more proportioned overall.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're judging based on like symmetry, balance.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not just who's got like the best glutes and hamstrings or
Oh
who's got
no.
the best shoulders or whatever. And I think sometimes people overfixate on, one thing instead of remembering like it's a whole entire physique. Like it all counts. So
Right.
like obviously into 2019, I'm sure are you planning on competing this year?
Yes.
Awesome. So, like, what do you think it is that you need to do, right? Like, we know what needs to change, but what is it that you're going to do in order to bring that undeniable physique that you have been working hard on?
So it's going to be, so here's my thing. It's all an experimentation for me. So I've tried different things. I've tried different things with different coaches. I've tried different diets. I've tried different types of cardio. And I think what I need to do is kind of go back to the time that I was the best. And that was back in 2017. That was my best season. I was pretty close to, I was getting like top 10 at all the shows that I was doing. Um, so probably going back to that same diet and training that I was doing then, but then figuring out what could bring those glutes tighter in. And I think that comes down to being a little bit leaner and then probably doing a little bit more of like incline walking
Mm-hmm.
instead of, and then, and then I'm with PJ Braun at this time, who is helping me with my coaching, and he has some trick off his sleeve. So I'm excited to see what he has in mind as well once
Woo!
that time comes around.
Yes, that'll be so exciting. I think, like you said earlier, like having a coach makes a huge, huge difference. And were there some, I mean, we talked about the car accident, we talked about what it was like when, it was difficult with the weight situation and then also the pressure of the ab chick, right? Identity. So
Mhm.
what were some of the most challenging parts of your journey that maybe made you think, I should give up, I gotta quit, or it's
Oh,
never gonna happen?
so this year was definitely one of those years. Like, and this was before the accident and everything. It was like after I was doing my shows. I did three shows this year, and I got dead last in all of them. The first one I deserved dead last. I looked awful. Like I've never been so unconditioned to a show. It wasn't even funny. Um, but I lived and I learned. I learned that it was like that technique of doing really high fats did not work for me. Then I went on to my second show, and that one was because I wanted to do it. It was in between the last show that I wanted to do. And I didn't do as well. I felt like I deserved a little bit better, but I still needed to come in a bit tighter. And then the last show, I just felt a little robbed in that one. At least I should have came in at least like, so I should have placed in the first call outs. Definitely, maybe not in the top 5, whatever, but I should have had that first call out easy, and I didn't get it. And that was very discouraging to me. I was like, man, like, what is this? Like, I went from doing so well. I'm only supposed to go up, but I went down. Like, I
Mm.
went from being top 10 to being not even in the top anymore. So that was very frustrating to me, and I just didn't understand it. And I was like, okay. And I for some time, I even thought about it. I was like, man, what am I even going to compete again? This is dumb. Like, I'm never going to place. And then every time that I did, I kind of would think back. I think I had that mentality for a little bit too, where I was just like, I'm not going to compete again. Like I wouldn't tell anyone, but like kind of told myself and like my families, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm probably not going to compete again, this and that. And then it came to a day where I was just like, well, Steph, like, have you reached your full potential? My answer is no. I
Mm.
haven't brought in the physique that deserve like I pretty much asked myself, like, did I deserve first place at any of the shows that I did this year? No. Okay. So have you reached what you needed to reach? No. So why are you quitting? Well, I guess I shouldn't.
I love it. I was gonna ask you how you like moved through that, and I think that's such a great way to do that. And it is a true testament to your own goals, like honoring your own desires and your own needs and the things that you've set out for yourself. Not necessarily at all about like if you took I'm curious actually what you think about this. Like if you took placing away and the trophies away and all of that away, would you have still felt like, obviously I didn't bring or reach my full potential?
Yeah. No, because that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the trophy or what the judges think. I'm thinking about my own physique,
Hmm.
what I'm looking at. I'm like, have I reached the point where I'm satisfied with how my glutes look compared to my upper body? No. So once I reach that, I'll be satisfied whether I get a trophy or not.
Yes, I
So
love that. You're
like like the placement is like arbitrary. Like you'll see one, especially in the pro level. The pro level is like crazy. You'll see one girl getting like first place at a show, winning the pro show, and then the next week she gets like last place. So it's like, as long as I'm like, if I were to at least do first call outs at every show, I would be a happy camper.
Mhm.
But I would be static and probably the most proud of myself if I came in exactly how I want to look.
Yeah,
So, or at least reaching what I thinking that I should be at.
because that's where your blood, sweat, and tears are.
Right.
For you, literally, too. I know, like in the gym, you really push yourself to like beyond the limit for what maybe you would have done yourself or with or without a trainer. It just seems like you really take it like you take it to the point of tears. Is that something you do in your off season as well?
I do. So obviously in the off season, it's a little harder to cry because you have a little bit more food and more energy in you. But
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I've had times where I'm like, I don't. So yeah, so usually like the point of tears is usually like a point where I like that's my point of exhaustion.
Mm,
And once again, that usually just comes usually when I'm on prep. So where I'm limited on energy and I'm still pushing through because I'm like, okay, I need to get this done. So, but yeah, I know it's kind of crazy, but
no, no, I totally get it. I've cried definitely during workouts. I watched some of your videos. I was like, whoa, she is killing it. Like she's pushing hard. And then I was like, I can remember sometimes on prep, I was laying in the middle of like, you know how some gyms have like the multi-purpose room or whatever where they do classes?
uh-huh.
I was like laying in the middle of this room after jump roping for God knows how long and how many sets. And then I like just laid there. And then all of a sudden, like my boyfriend's like peeking in the room. He's like, "What's up?" And I'm just like crying, like so hard. Like I don't know what's up. Like it's literally like you said, it's the exhaustion. It just hits you,
Hmm.
and I think it's really is really powerful to know that we can push ourselves there and obviously still be alive.
Yeah, it's
Achieve a
like the
goal.
mind just puts you at such a block. Like it's crazy. Like I don't know if you've ever had this where if like you go and try to do squats and you put a little bit too much weight where in your brain you're like, oh, I could do this, but it's too heavy. It's too heavy. And then like you'll notice like when you're going down on the squat, you can't even get parallel. Like your body literally like ricochets up again. Like
Yeah. Yes. Instead of seeing it as like, oh yeah, I got this, like no big deal, or oh, I hit this last week, or
mhm.
even if you just think it's a different number than it is on the bar, it changes everything. Like you really feel differently when you go and hit it.
Right.
Well, I think it's really awesome that you are a competitor who has shown a lot of strength through adversity. You've come through a lot of different things that I think a lot of people can relate to, in the sense of facing things you don't necessarily have control over and then learning how to let go. And I appreciate you sharing so much of your insight on that. It's just been really cool talking to you. I actually am curious, before I get to like some of the last like questions, like what is your accent? Like where are you from?
Oh, you can hear it? Oh.
It's not bad. I like it. It's character.
That's funny. Okay, so my parents are Cuban, and I lived in Venezuela for 10 years, and I moved here when I was 10. I'm 25 now.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
yeah, most people can't hear it. So it only comes out sometimes. And then
You get that flair. You're just
I
like,
know it.
I'm here. That's so cool. And did you come to California by yourself?
So right now I'm living with my boyfriend here in California. He is in medical school. So we're
Wow.
originally from Florida. That's where I've grown up, gone to school. Then I went to get my master's in Chicago, but that was only for like 2 years. And then yeah, we moved out here in August. Yeah,
Wow. That's so cool.
I know.
I know, like I was just like, wow, I'm very, very curious about that. But I think it's amazing. Do you notice a big difference between like East Coast and West Coast?
There's a couple of difference. Yes, people are friendlier in Florida. They're more, there's that southern hospitality that is down there. Even though Florida is not even, they don't even consider themselves as southerns. But they're a little bit nicer. The weather is nicer here. It doesn't rain, so it's good. Florida literally rains like every day. We got mountains here. That's incredible. I love mountains.
Me
And
too.
then I want to say it's funny because I thought the fitness scene would be a lot bigger here, but I would say they're about the same here in Florida.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And did you pursue your degree in psychology for like this? Because did you get it? I think I remember reading like industrial organizational. Is
Yeah.
that okay? I took a class on that specific subject, but I
Did
thought
you?
it was, yeah, I really enjoyed it. So I was curious like how you got into like it's your master's, right? That's
Yeah,
amazing, by the
so
way.
I did my master's and I did my internships and decided I didn't like it.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm gonna try something new. And my boyfriend was very supportive at the time. He's like, okay, Steph, like, well, you'll give it a try. I'm like, yeah. Let me see if I can make this work. At first, I was literally like just scraping by. Like, I could barely afford anything. And right
With
now,
fitness coaching?
yeah, because I just didn't know what I was doing. I was just starting out, and like, I mean, I would make enough to like survive. Like, I was literally like scraping by. That sometimes I even had to ask my parents for extra little money here and there. And now, like, I'm supporting myself. I support my boyfriend in his medical school. Like,
Wow.
so it's one of those things that like if you push through it and you make it work. So I guess your question from earlier, if I ever do anything like that with my own life, then I guess so. Like, I didn't want to go into the corporate world. I saw how that was. I saw that I didn't fit in.
Mm.
I worked for United Airlines for my internship,
Oh,
and the
wow.
population there was like the medium like the average age was like 50. So I was like, I cannot relate to any of these people.
Yeah.
And then I did another internship with like another small consulting firm, and the kids were my age, but all they wanted to do was drink, and I don't drink. So I was like, okay, no one wanted to talk about fitness with me. No one wanted to talk about drama, like of like the competitors with me. So I was like, okay, I can't deal with this. So like I wasn't enjoying it. So it was fun and all, and the free flights were good, nice, but I was like, I need to try something else, and luckily for me, it worked out.
Yeah, the ab chick was born.
Yes.
That is so cool. And when you like when you were surrounded by those people and you were going through your internships, like do you feel like that helped you when you did launch into your own business and doing your own thing? Did that almost have like even more fuel to the fire because you knew how painful it would be to have to do something like
Yes. I was like, Steph, you need to make this work because then you're going to have to go back to corporate. You have to deal with all these people. And not that the people were bad, but it's just like the interests didn't meet with each other. Like, all they wanted to do was gossip about each other, and I didn't want to gossip about that. So it's so funny. You go in the freaking corporate world and you think that people actually work. No, they do not work. They take their work home and they work from home. And like the whole from 8 to 5, all they're doing is calling each other up to see what the other person's doing and what they're doing and talk about each other. And I'm like, really? This is it?
You're like, I didn't go to school for this.
And then they'll go home, and I'm like, I want to go home and do other stuff. I want to enjoy my day, my time off after.
Yeah.
But no, like they have nothing else to do. So,
That's so crazy.
but yeah,
I'm
it's
glad
fun.
that you launched into your own. That's a big deal, and it takes a lot of guts and courage, and people usually tell us not to do those things. I know what that feels like to leave
It's tough.
something.
It's tough. I wasn't like my parents supported me through it, but at the same time, like my dad, he's an entrepreneur also, and he'd always like, support me. He was like, yeah, Steph, you're doing the right thing. Keep going. My mom, on the other hand, like she's like, no, you should go and dress pretty to go to work. Like wear those cute outfits and then fly around because you're gonna be a consultant and you're gonna fly everywhere. I'm like, Mom, you realize that they don't just fly and vacation, they actually have to work. But you still go. I'm like, oh gosh, like
You're like, let me like build my own thing, and then we'll all go together.
exactly. And then like now, and the thing is, it's funny because that was her expectation for me. She's always like, you need to travel, Stephanie. Like with work, if you do consulting work, you'll be traveling so much. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, and it's funny because now, like, I think back, I'm like, man, I travel so freaking often just for shows. Like, I do like
Yeah.
2017. How many freaking shows did I do? I did like 6 shows that year, and like it was just nonstop. And I was like, man, I travel more than most people that I know. Like,
Yeah, seriously. I think it's really cool, like in the fitness space and in the competition space, especially, even though we gotta invest to do that. Those
hmm
are experiences that are now even more heightened because we have like skin in the game. Like we're literally going for something that we love, and we get to experience these places for such deeper reasons. Like they hold so much more meaning.
hmm
I think
hmm
that's great. I'm just really glad that, like, to hear from someone. I mean, you're pretty young, right?
I'm 25.
Yeah. Okay. See, this is awesome. Like, I love just like connecting with other young women who are just pursuing what they want to do. You're able to support yourself. Like, you got your education, and you're doing what you love. Like, you're doing what you're passionate about, and you're actually making a difference. So, I admire you, and I applaud you for that. And I just think it's great. And I'm glad that you were cool with like even opening up and talking about that here. And I always like to just kind of finish it off by asking, like, what's one piece of advice that you would give to people who are thinking about competing, or maybe people who are competing but are looking to go pro?
Hmm. Don't give up. I know it sounds so cheesy, but like, don't listen to people. People are gonna tell you things, and like I remember when I first started there's one guy like I was like, oh, you're never gonna turn pro unless you take drugs or unless you sleep with this person or unless you do this. I'm fuck you. Like I did it on my own. Like thank you very much. Like people are gonna tell you things and their opinions, and there's parents out there or family members or friends are not gonna support what you want to do. And you're just gonna have to put it aside and put your preferences and what you want to do first. And if that's what you enjoy, that's what you enjoy. You keep going with it. So I guess that was like 7 different takeaways.
It's really great, really good advice. So I'm glad you shared all that. I was just talking to someone the other day who was sharing with me that she had parents who were not very supportive of that, and that can obviously make someone feel like totally like they're not appreciated for who they really are. So I think that's fitting advice. And um this is the first episode of 2019. Even more exciting. I love it. Way to kick it off right. So, do you mind just letting everybody know where they can connect with you, how they can maybe work with you or get in touch with you? Just celebrate that you came on here, celebrate your period.
Right? Second month in a row, man.
And really just thank you for being on. Like, where can they find you?
No problem. Okay, guys. So on Instagram, I am the app chick. You can find me on there for all of my programs for lifestyle coaching or prep coaching. You can find that all on theappchick.com. Within that website as well, I have a members area, which is $6 a month, where you'll see exactly what I do every single day when it comes to my nutrition and my training. So I pretty much detail out exactly what I'm eating. exactly what I'm doing that day with the cardio and everything. And then my progress pictures are in there. So you guys kind of stay in a closer look of exactly what I do to achieve my goals and how I'm going to get prepared for my 2019 season. So that's always fun. And a lot of people just follow the workouts and they just do it themselves, whether, I think it's good to have something where everyone can afford and they can still, manage to do something. They can try it out and understand. It's like, oh, maybe I want to compete. Okay, let me try one of Stephanie's workouts and then go from there. So that's that. So theappcheck.com, and y'all can email me, text me, whatever, and DM me, and I'll be happy to answer.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you so much. Very easy to remember and awesome of you to share that and be open for people reaching out to you. I appreciate you so much for coming on. To everybody listening, these links, this notes, all of this is going to be on the podcast page. So that's www.celestial.fit/podcast. I'm going to make sure all the notes are there so you can connect with Steph and, of course, follow her, connect with her, learn from her. And with that being said, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And to everybody listening, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.